Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. I hope you are doing well, and this video finds you doing better, feeling better, or at least looking forward on a new horizon than you were before. When it comes to reading some of the comments here on the channel, I know what a struggle, I know what a difficulty it is. I know how difficult it is really to bottom line after you've encountered a relationship or really sort of a proximity or a closeness with someone who is narcissistic or even beyond narcissistic, psychopathic, someone who doesn't have a sort of sense of morality or conscience, someone who lacks empathy, someone who does not feel worried, afraid if they hurt others, if they lie, steal, if they break the law, if they do others dirty. They don't feel a pang or remorse of guilt. These people who they do not because of their demise, they don't feel a sense of sentiousness or what I would say sensitivity or sentiment, something you might call sanguine, the blood-based personality, where they can be sort of oftentimes very warm or passionate, but also very anger-based. And when we talk, I know how difficult it is. And what I really want to talk about here on this video is how to overcome a broken heart, or what you might feel brokenheartedness, or really depression, feeling let down and not knowing the source. To be sanguine, so in studying psychology, they talk about some of like the ancient peoples and ancient texts, and they talk about people with a sanguine nature, people who are optimistic or positive, especially in a bad or apparently bad, treacherous situation. So having optimism, being courageous, they also call it, blood red, a blood red color. It is, blood is thicker than water. The meaning of a sanguine person, so someone who is confidently optimistic. So parents oftentimes have this feeling towards their parents. And it can be or people can have this sentiment towards their children, their spouse, themselves, but particularly I would say, there then comes also this experience of heartbreak, or you might feel that you're suffering a lack of optimism. So I want to sort of zero in and focus in on a great viewer question that they're really basically asking for help. Their child, who is 16, is displaying, a lot of these pathological behaviors, psychopathic, if you will. So psychopathic, which means not just based on a pathological sense of self-interest, and just not sort of these people who will do anything to anybody to get ahead. So not these courageous people, but we're talking about people who display in their early years a sort of cold-bloodedness or a lack of closeness, warmness, intimacy, and sort of will trump up other experiences beyond that, so that can be then fear-based. And they will do this to manipulate or captivate or please others. So I want to break down a little bit the terrible habit of people pleasing that comes as a habit or as a result of being in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic or worse yet, psychopathic. So people pleasing is when you base your happiness on what is going on around you. If the people around you are okay, in other words, they're not openly lashing out at you, they're not openly complaining and finding you the source, they're not tirade, going on an open tirade of negativity and unhappiness, which can be considered like a pathological disappointment, which means the relational pattern that these people who are particularly narcissistic and psychopathic, these people need to control, belittle, demean, and manipulate others to sort of forge their way in the world. You know, saying things to the parents like, just give me what I want and you'll have a better life. Okay, so there's these big sweeping statements that they will do in host with a whole litany of other behaviors, threats, looks, statements that really throw people off and can lead to an emotional paralysis, which means people become stuck like a deer in the headlights. So this is the fawn stage. So when people are faced with these ilk type of people, these people can be of any income, male or female, or of any ethnicity. However, when we're talking about these people who cultivate the manipulation of others to get what they want, in other words, they want to push, cajole, persuade through fear, through just sort of annihilating others, acting as if they don't exist, acting as if they do not have feelings, plowing through them emotionally, which means just sort of having a emotional ignorance or emotional numbness or coldness, a lack of sensitivity to others. So these people literally have what a psychopath would term ice blood running through their veins. So they, in other words, they don't have the humanity. They don't have the warm-bloodedness. You know, like a cold-blooded animal. If you think of like a shark, you know, there can be fish of prey, there can be birds of prey, and it is said by Dr. Robert Hare that those people who are psychopathic are intra-species predators, which means these are the people who prey on others of the same species, but who will display their gaffness, who will display their cold-bloodedness and basically, you know, shock others, try to get people around them, control others. These might be the bully on the playground. They're using sheer force. They're, you know, going into if they're a child, like 16, 15, 14. These are the young individuals who will violate boundaries, like they say here, fighting the boundaries. In other words, this is your room, and they sleep all over the house. This is your room, and then they'll hide things around the house, alcohol, whatever that are the ends of their lifestyle, that are oftentimes things that they have stolen or are beyond their age with the ability to purchase. So these people will have false identification. They have no problem going up to people and, you know, just do this for me and, you know, buy this for me, steal this for me, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, tell this to somebody. So these are people who even in a school, you know, go and tell somebody this and, you know, leave it. So these people will employ others very early to create a fear, to create a sort of group, a posse, if you will, of people who know their inner secrets or what they quote unquote have the ability to do and they don't really have, they have a disability to love. They have a disability to be close. They have a disability to have empathy. So these people sort of turn others people's lives upside down and shake them out for all their worth, all that they are. And will oftentimes use shock, like shock or stunning as a way to manipulate others, sort of get them the paralysis. These are the people who will, young boys or young girls, it doesn't even matter what sex, who you can find the kids out in the playground, or others in the neighborhood who are performing surgery on insects, animals, birds, who can be cruel to animals, who will use firecrackers, blow up people's property. Not enough, to sometimes get caught by the law, but they'll run, or, it can be things that are not so severe that, people don't realize until later. Why is there a hole in our garage? And then it was blocked off by something. And meanwhile, this person does this as a means of efficacy or importance or authority. So they're getting, what do they have to gain? So when they sort of consider themselves above or beyond others because of this capacity to lie, to cheat, to steal, to hurt, to maim, to threaten, and not feel worried that they have done such grave atrocities. So most people, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, and that they're not then versed in the ways of the mainstream, like telling the truth, like having a job, like not fighting your way to the top. But they will do this in other sophisticated ways. So these people can create not a posse of relationships, but a posse of people who are the blinds, who are the people pleasing, who will give in to their demands, who, before you know better, for example, who's going to be the coolest kid on the block? Well, if you have an 11-year-old who's taking bugs and is like transplanting wings here and putting them over here, or other, what they would, the cruelty to animals. So in other words, most people have an inclination to be warm-blooded, which means they want a pet, they want to take care of, they want to train an animal, and they want to have certain, and to train, just like in a job or in a family, when you're teaching kids, there's a symbiotic relationship. So there comes a feeling of reward when you see your child grow or earn their grades, and then you might want to reward them for such. So the usual celebrations, the usual accolades, the usual things that you would consider like formative parts or really emotionally significant, the downplay will be there, and it's very heartbreaking, which means people are so emotionally distraught that they become paralyzed. So just that they cannot move, they do not know what to do. And this creates, sometimes knowingly or unknowingly, a whole host of negative enabling or habits of people pleasing, which people don't oftentimes realize what this means. And I would say in the beginning, it begins as eye contact. It begins sort of with a feeling of something's not right. There's something a little bit off about this person, and you can't quite put it, and it might take you several days, months, or even years to say, what is it about this person that is attractive? Oftentimes they have a look in their eye that others can feel cause them to drop their guard. So there's a look, the looks that can be enticing. So you'd say, oh, like Marilyn Monroe, or there's certain looks that people have, the Mona Lisa, or what I'm trying to say is that there's a parallel between how these people will conduct and surround themselves socially versus the rest of society. So these people will target and be able to find those people who I would say have a high scale or desire of sort of the vulnerability, meaning that there is a weakness inherent that you like to see other people happy around you, that this is a comfort. In other words, you become very state dependent on others around you, otherwise known as sensitive or empathic. In other words, are you the type of person who is caring, that your child or a relationship or even a stranger is hurting, or that you don't like to see people get hurt, or you don't like to see the bad guy win? You want to see good prevail. You want to see humanity. Like if you see, for example, we've had, big hurricanes, and, there's some people who go, yeah, you're living there, you deserve it. And then there's other people who are like, oh my gosh, let's help these people, and humanitarian effort. So there's people, and then who then see these idiosyncratic, what they then would interpret as strong or resilient or secure, and they realize then how weak, frail, or human that they are compared to these people. They're upsetting an animal. For example, you're putting your family pet to sleep. These people, for all that they care, they're just carrying out a sack of garbage, a sack of potatoes, tinfoil. It doesn't even matter. It's the same on the emotional scale that they feel towards an animal or a person as an object. So they don't really have a social conscience, if you will. So they don't value sort of the human life in the way that others do. And some people, depending on the context, can look up to these people. Man, you're so cool under pressure. Man, you got them to do this. Man, you just stole the teacher's grading key. Man, you just stole all their homework. Man, you just took the keys to that person's car and you drove it into the ditch, or whatever you did. A lot of people tend to then, maybe of their same peer. So oftentimes these individuals who are heart, it can be heartbreaking, but even if your heart is broken, do not become the worse for the wear. Do not become the people pleaser. Do not become controlled by the temporary meanderings or threats of violence or fear or these other things that are really the ugly side, the inhumane side, the fear. They'll drum up fear to manipulate and control others, hurt animals. I mean, of course, if you're the kid, the person, the teenager who is doing these things, oftentimes people who are sentient, who have a heart, will go, wow, man, this person is really cool under pressure. They're not worried about being late. They're not worried about upsetting their children. They're not upset that the children are late, and they're not worried that they won't be able to control them. They do not care. In fact, these people will get a sense of efficacy or pleasure or reward when they are to put people in an uncomfortable situation. So it's very much like it's like a playwright to see how their first, like their opening act goes. So in other words, they'll sit with rapt attention, and they won't, the difference between a psychopath and really, some of these other narcissists is not to only the degree of their coldness and their lack of empathy or sentientiousness or warmth towards others, but to the point that they will use like calling cards. They'll have a premeditated, pre-calculated, and predetermined way of things unfolding. So this person, even though they might say, let me get away with this and I won't target you. So in other words, just turn, and oftentimes the parents won't know won't know what to do. They will use sexual prowess. They will inappropriately touch others. This is boundary violation. But these people can appear and then be those people who, once again, who will have people who with their jaws dropping. Wow. And then who, of course, these kids are impressionable. So if you see, a child or an individual, young adult, doing these things, they appear to have a special skill. So people then who are either living close to them or for whatever reason are in proximity will then become people pleasers who will do, and they'll, go get me another, go stand outside this teacher's class. I'll show you how it's done. Go get me another bug. Go point me to another bird. Go show me this, So they sort of begin to have and rule their little neighborhoods, the classrooms, their families. They begin to set another just sort of paralysis into motion where people then find that they're in then these, exciting or states of happiness, or just depending on how that individual has related to you. They'll be able to show you either more in depth, they'll be able to perhaps, please others by, don't tell on me and I'll make sure you get a good grade. Don't turn me in and I'll make sure you get the next pair of sneakers. Don't do this and I'll leave you alone. Or, they will then make these other threats to the people that they want to keep and say, oh, it's their loss. You're the one who's going to win me over. And then you're so lucky that I don't do that to you. Or all sorts of other tirades that people are feared into believing. They're feared into believing. So, the problem when it comes to knowing better is to realize that you do. But these individuals who will use fear and bully as a way to show you the shock and disarm you. So, shock, the shock and awe that they will do. Violating boundaries. So if it's a child, I can't believe it's usually, what do children usually value? Grades, friends, different material things, and sexual partners, or being the most popular one. So in the group, so they're going to try to cultivate, but it doesn't mean that that person has to get away with it. Okay, unfortunately, these individuals will lie, manipulate, even, what you would consider the rule makers and enforcers of society. So your counselors, your religious people, your teachers, your peers. So they'll manipulate or turn and manipulate. In other words, to see through their lens. The psychopath, you'll know because people will slowly lose themselves, lose their perspective, lose their values, and lose sort of this organic sense of internal warmth, if you will. So that sanguine nature begins to be corrupted, and people can find that they cannot think, process, that they become, again, like the shock and awe, paralysis, being stuck. They can't think themselves through it. Again, these oftentimes are neurochemical fawn states where you're literally, and this is what they know. And so they will learn and put more feathers in their quiver, the more that they are able to stun, shock, and leave people reeling, including adults, including doctors, including lawyers, including police. All these other people, these people tend to self-identify, something is different about me, and then they'll say, oh, to those people around them, and this is a way to get their ear. So in other words, to stay in attention, to get their ear. Okay, meaning, are you attending? Are you listening? And then, because if you are, you're going to be manipulated. And like many psychopaths will say, the end result is going to be, a loss for another. That is just how they work. This is how they feel effective. This is how they relate. This is how they feel that they're making an impact. This is just what they do. So the color red is the color red. Color blue is the color blue. This person is no different. And this is how they relate to others. This is not make you any less than of parents, confidants, family members, relationals. To live your own life is putting a cork in it. It's not over, okay? It doesn't mean that things are over. You just must realize that these are the types of individuals that you must not people please. These are people that you must not give eye contact, validation, given to their demands, their coaxing. What does this mean? Oh, peace and harmony. This is surely going to come too bad for us. Well, this has to be within you and within you only. So this is, how you then go no contact when they're in the room. How you go no contact when they're in your workplace. Because this individual is going to go on. And they are going to walk their own walk. They're going to talk their own talk. And you must give them that space, because unfortunately you cannot live through other people's problems. You can't take yourself to the doctor and expect them to be cured. You can't go and have a surgery expecting that their abilities to be different. So you must just look. Number one is self-protection and self-preservation. And that is in your heart. And that is really in your emotion. And yet this is not going to become oftentimes a clean cut. It's going to become a process. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some understanding. Number one is any professional, and I would say, who deals with this, is you can't begin to think like them. In other words, oh, I want to know what they're doing next. What does it mean? The enigma with which they speak. So oftentimes these people can speak, think, and act in very puzzling or enigmatic ways that cannot be worked out. So like a puzzle that doesn't ever get figured out. So they will leave what I call calling cards, strange things that will leave you thinking, wondering about them. They will, so when they do this, when you're worried, wondering, heartbroken, lost, not moving on, the psychopath is saying to themselves, what I'm doing is still working. So they feel that they are effective by using these quote unquote talents that they have. So a young 16-year-old, 15-year-old, 14-year-old, this is when they begin to wake up and they go, man, something about me is really different. Like, look at all those kids, who are 13 trying to impress each other with the cute smiles, this, that. I got something better than that, is what they're thinking, because they will see all the other little kids holding hands, trying to dress up for dates, trying to get the good grades so that they can go to a school, toiling laboriously hard under the sun to get a suntan, or to whatever, play soccer or play softball or do whatever, all these things to become on a team sport. And they're going, look at all these people. And they realize, you know what? I don't need to work all that. I can just go to the principal's office. You want to know all the grades? They're all right here. No other kid would fathom even thinking that. So these people, individuals, will have thought process and behaviors, which oftentimes then will have the shock and awe and be heartbreaking to others because they feel powerless. Remember, the psychopath doesn't want you to figure them out. They don't want you to know that you can get some distance. They don't want you to know that you can't get tripped up. They don't want you to know that you are going to fall flat on your face. So they're manipulative. They're counting on a specific outcome. They have certain demands. It's like living with a ransom. And unfortunately, the longer people are in proximity to these individuals, the worse sort of neurochemical, not only stress, but a very difficult form of manipulation, people pleasing, de-stressing. The cortical steroids begin to really amp up. And this can really create a feeling which most people will not experience, that of being sort of brainwashed and having your thoughts and your behaviors and your emotions sort of be in alignment so that you can focus and function. So they want life off the rails. They want people to, this is how they feel effective. This is what they do, okay? And you do not need to listen or interpret the words from their, so this is really for the people who are heartbroken, who are really in that wounded stage. Very difficult, especially if you're still in the midst of it. You've got a chunk of time, that you are discovering and exposing, okay? And then you're going to go on a trajectory up where the hills will sing again, where, the sound of music, you can watch it and your innocence returns. You can feel a simple joy in life. The sun rises. You are tickled. You've never had such a good sleep. When you really work through these things. Sacrificing. What should we do? Giving into the demands. Okay, you must realize that there is going to come a time when you're going through the exposure. And, and to you have to consider yourself lucky to see it now and not mistake it and not see it now. So if you can see it now, amen. Thank goodness, because not all people are strong enough to see it for what it is. So in other words, it is extremely strong for you to identify it and to even be on this channel. Not all people are able to understand the tyranny, the addiction, the triangulation, the tactics that will brainwash others. So I would say the brainwashing really, which means confusing and making unclear your path. You can't live anymore. It's difficult to drive, get to work. Everybody else, just everything is really made unsolid, unsecure. You don't want to get to that point. Don't let it get this far. And I'm very, very sorry, very sad, very emotionally hurt to hear this, because I know how breaking it is. If this is your child, if this is your sibling, if this is your spouse, and if this is your parent, or if this was your fiance, I know how heartbreaking it is. This is not your typical heartbreak. This is not, just the difficulty of the teenage years in a psychopath. This is, excuse me, this is not just growing pains. This is not just, where are we going to live? You must know what this means, what this is, and you must learn to identify it and really be able to distinguish this type of person from yourself. Namely, if you can realize, so in order to help, I want you to realize the vast spectrum of emotions, feelings, thoughts, and warmth and sentiousness that you have that separates you from this family member or this other individual. So you must see through the lies. You must have like a double vision when you're going through the exposing years. And I don't want to be the one to say with a psychopath that it is not to be taken lightly. This is not funny. This is not, we can, make certain, not jokes about it, but I can make allegory, which means parallels, because people are so hurt, so in depth, and so astray that they can't find themselves back to the mainstream. They're held hostage in their own home, their own neighborhoods. They can't feel just what normal is. So when it comes to this, you must realize that to help you, you must help yourself. You are more important than your child, than your fiance, than your spouse, than your dream. You, the one who has the ears to hear and the eyes to see and the heart to feel. You are more important. Your sanctity and your understanding is more important. And I know that this other person has sort of taken over things, and it's very absolutely something that makes you want to leave your house, leave your job, even to the point where if they take over the house, that's okay. I can't, this is uninhabitable. So, it does not get better. This is not something that, unfortunately, that you just say, well, let's go to family therapy and let's talk about being nice to animals and people, and let's take you to a petting zoo. This is not a let's go to church fix. This is not a let's get our family right with education. This is about identifying that sometimes there comes a situation where this occurs, and you do not judge, you learn. Okay, the number one thing is to find channels like this, but who talk about people who have had exposure, not just, your documentaries that are by 60 minutes. This is talking about really when it comes to embracing your humanity, that other people are 400 miles down the track with these individuals who have had their houses lost, their relationships, their families, who are here to tell you, we know it's hard. I know it's hard. It doesn't make sense. You don't deserve this. This doesn't compute. So all these different things that make it very difficult to act is to realize that these individuals need to be within structures where either they are protected from, they're being protected from others. So in other words, these are the people who are going to encounter the law, okay? And you might need the vastness and the size of the law. Do not try to do this on your own. Call in the police. Call in the big police, not the neighborhood ones. Call in the big boys, okay? The people who have gone through advanced training, okay? If your so-and-so is pushing you around, I don't think so. No way, Jose. You do not let these people win. You do not you do not fight like you've been fighting for your child. The typical way. You do not fight for this love of your life and to, show them. You do not look for closure. Okay? You do not look to settle the score. Like you might think with a normal situation. Let's talk this out. Let's figure this out. Why this? Why that? Let's set up a behavior modification. Then you can go to this if you do that. Unfortunately, when we get to this is how they are going to lead their life until they mature. And you need to not rely only on you. Oh, but this is my family member. Oh, but I don't, it pings me to see them, this way. Well, it might hurt. I will tell you, it's going to hurt more if they bring back your car totaled. It might hurt more if you found that they put arson to their school. It might hurt more if they put arson to your house or other things. So the hurt that you are feeling now, let's stop the bleeding. Especially when they'll use these sort of, what I call train, what do you call it when, a train is going off the rails moment. So they're going to want to lead their life. The train is constantly going off the rails moment where you're going, like your mouth is dropping and you want to see what happens in the next 10 minutes, next hour. What's going to happen to that train? Is it going to go off the rails? So these are your people who go, see, I told you, and then they send it off the rails. They go, these are the people who think, plot, and will plan in ways that you would not even think or dream of. So unfortunately, these people belong to another type, even if it's your family member. Okay? And don't feel gypped out. But how do you realize, then you begin to say, this is when you show them, you don't put it on you. So for the people who I've spoken with, who try to do it all on their own, let's not get anybody involved. Let's bail them out. That is termed enabling. So you need to let some other professionals in on this. Teachers, maybe professionals who you don't want to encounter or speak with, those who are of the law, those who are of the big law, like the people who, who work at the clinker, who work at the big house, who work in the, not so great situations, where you do lose, and then they will meet others, like themselves. This is not what you want for your child. However, you have to realize that that individual has their life, and it does not mean that you have to become or be part of it in the same full-time way, 24/7, living at your house. I mean, it's like having, if you were to have a child, for example, who had cerebral palsy, who needed a wheelchair, who needed professional help, like doctors to look at their spine, or doctors to help them eat their food or walk, or specific, devices. You would then, well, let's go. And yes, they need a wheelchair. They need assistive devices. They need walking. So just as if you were parents, you would go and get them that same type of care to keep them safe from themselves, safe from others, etc. So I beg I beg those who are out there to kind of flip and reframe and reformat the situation. Reframing is a very effective tool for you to use your ability as an individual to think about what you're thinking about and reframe it. And instead of saying and interpreting things like, we're losing this family member, we're terrible people, or whatever judgment, the emotional damage becomes very difficult unless you shore things up. And I mean from a time standpoint as well. So when you realize and reframe and say, here is this individual who I, in your heart, had reached out to. And not just, so you have to realize that a lot of you has that attention, and more of that has also still holding on. And when your heart can then influence your thought process, and oftentimes not keep thinking clearly. So just as you think of, for example, a child or someone you were dating, if they were to come up to the date with a wheelchair and a feeding tube, you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, this date of mine has special needs. This child of mine has special needs. So, so one really important tool is that of perspective. Really important is perspective. When you're to the point where you're beside yourself, when there's this sort of delirium, this twilight zone ruling the roost. There's so many intoxicating stress chemicals that are literally, like, I would say, as intense as if you were to be a prisoner of war through the most barbaric of times. This gets like barbaric. So if you're feeling that this is different, so you have to realize then that I need a setting, a situation, or a similar outcome where I'm open to the same type of other people who know this type of individual, and who can provide this type of setting that is going to be most beneficial for their safety and your own safety. So your safety trumps them. Period. End of story. Even if you haven't thought that. So just as you can reframe and say, you know what, I can't really, so if you were to have this to be your fiance, and you had a lot invested, time, emotion, energy, jewelry, finances, houses, property. That's not a reason to stay. I've been with them 20 years. You must reevaluate and say, the commitment that I made then, it's different now. So just as if you would really more easily be able to make a decision. So for example, if it's heartbroken, you can't see through the tears. You can't see through the crying. You can't see through the emotional heartbreak. You feel you don't want this. Well, then you have to go for the next little rung up. Your child has cerebral palsy. They're in a wheelchair. It would be much easier to get them the proper clothing, environment, personnel, what they need, just the physical supports it would be much easier. But these individuals of deception, they will also realize that this gives them a handicap where they then interpret themselves to be more powerful, to be better than, or to have a force which they can get more from others and not really have to work for it. So the way I look at it is that these people kind of see the traditional blueprint that life is supposed to go, or a relationship is supposed to go. You work hard, you pay your dues, you you get engaged. This is how you take care of a spouse. This is how. So that blueprint, it does not really pertain to them, and they don't feel that that blueprint is their route. So it doesn't resonate, and so they'll use these enigmas, these psychopath salads, to say things. Oh, you wouldn't get this is a typical psychopath word salad, even though it sounds like, just be nice to me and you wouldn't get any of this. This is a typical psychopath word salad. So this is, in other words, it's like them saying, just stay manipulated and things won't change. In other words, just accept the lies, and things won't change for you. You can still have it just like this, just accept the lies. And unfortunately, people get to their wits' end, that sometimes they do. That is not the strong path. The strong path is to say, no, even this is our family member. Sometimes people say, well, this is our family member. Well, let's not let them get into detention or juvie or whatever center where it's going to be, where they go into, let's say they get arrested, and then they go in, they get arrested. Well, then that means you don't bail them out. These are the people who need to realize that you stand for something, i.e. warm-hearted humanity and self-respect and respect of others, animals, property. If you don't want any more destruction or lies, then you just say, I don't want any more destruction or lies. Unfortunately, that's how these people are. You can hear it time and time again. We're here 400 miles down the pike. We're saying, unfortunately, this is what, these people do. And to save yourself a shred of sanity, and realize, that these shreds of sanity aren't 100 and 200 and 300 folds. You can't keep giving out your shreds of sanity and expect that you're going to be able to bounce back, win this one. They'll see it right this way. They got in trouble this time. Now they won't do it again. You're thinking from your own heart. You're thinking from your own standpoint. That does not apply to them or these types of people. And God loved them as a family member, someone you put your hopes, dreams, and everything. God can still love them. But just because let's say, for example, you had a family member who had cerebral palsy and you don't have all the equipment around to make this happen. You don't have the type of shower where you can clean them off. You don't have the type of kitchen where you can prepare the type of food and mash it down, and you're not awake 24/7 to change their feeding tube. You just don't have, and so if you can look at your normal judgment system, and if anything, you'd say, you know what, we did pretty good by getting our child home as long as we did, and then they need to go to this facility here where there's people who are trained, doctors who have a PhD to deal with these people. Wouldn't you rather have the professionals who have the training, the knowledge, and the equipment to handle and be with these types of people than people who are ill-prepared and who are just going to remain hurt, who are going to lose property, time, and also lose your hope and your dreams? If you think, you might have had something vandalized or like something broken, and just be nice to me. This is a typical turning of the brainwashing. This is brainwashing. If people would just be nice to me, and then people, well, yeah, then we'll just try. That is meant to further intoxicate you into the brainwashing. And then people on all different, so how you've been relating to them will be a different sort of addiction, the way that they then hook you in to then where it becomes very difficult to function without them. So if you're, no one else makes them feel this way. Well, yeah, no one else makes you feel as scared, fearful, like you're gonna lose it or have an emotional breakdown or meltdown. Well, good. Thank God no one makes you feel the same way. This might be hard to say, but you must learn to have the distinction and learn the reframing, which means, rather than putting the negative judgment, oh, this person's a criminal, or, this psychopath, this is so embarrassing. We have a stigma. Let that go. Let the judgment go. And pick up your new hopes and dreams. Number one is begin, if you haven't worked through, get a new bucket list going and just begin to make those happen, even though we are still going to. And begin to say, even though such and such, we are still going to. And you put that back, that phraseology back into your I am, but in your forward-looking statements, even though this happened, and people are going to think it's going to follow you always. Well, this, and you have to understand this is going to make you better and more, sort of a little bit more valuable for the wear and tear, because how severe this can be. And it's just say that there's other people then who are going to be hurt by this individual. Personally, professionally, financially, psychologically. Do you knowingly want to put yourself in the lineup? No, that's counterintuitive to your own best interest. So you need to get your own best interest as number one. And self-protection. Look at them in terms of as if this would have like a physical handicap. If this was, someone with a physical handicap, wouldn't you want them to be around the right type of professionals? So whether those professionals are of the law, those people who are saying, hey, you can't vandalize this storefront, you can't do this to your peers, you can't do this to property, So those are the people who are going to, be the educators, who are going to be the people that this person is choosing. So realize at least this person is free in their matter of choice, and realize that this is not what, this is not going to be the truth. Being good to them doesn't make for a happy life. That is a lie also. I mean, and if it all is so, then you must only know better in your heart, and begin to speak about it. Speaking your new truth into reality is so important. Having a support system, other people, you might not be able to have a support system, because this might take you some time to work out, but you do not want this to take the next 10 years of your life. And so you must realize that they are then best with professionals who can help, even if this means them living in a more of a less free situation, or where you don't want them to quote unquote end up. Okay, this is not about what you want. Okay, this is about if we can reframe. And some people, but don't worry, because they would rather be identified as a good parent. They'd rather, oh, well, as a good parent, I would bail you out. As a good parent, we would take care of you. You have all this good parent, and we know you better than some random this or that. Well, realize some random this or that is where this person might need to go. They might need to go. And once they find themselves around others who have no conscience, in other words, other people who are older, and they'll go, and they'll realize, okay, and don't let your identity of yourself be identified as too soft, too lazy, not doing enough. Don't enable. It might be difficult, but realize that this tough thing could be the very best thing for them. And as you redo it with repetition and experience, it'll get easier. And then with repetition, experience, and time, you'll really know that you made the right decision. And you'll have others to kind of look at as kind of closer. Like, we kind of are survivors with this. So allow it to be something that brings you closer to your humanity, and allow yourself to not enable, live a lie for them, to protect them, live in silence, live in hurt, live in fear, all these different things. You're living in the free world. And realize that there are so many other people who have walked thousands of miles to live where you are. People who have, do you see what I'm saying? So get some things in perspective. Appreciate all that you have. And begin to look with new eyes on this. And really begin, especially your affirmations. I am a good parent. I am a good lover. I am a good sibling. I am a good date. I am a good person. I am a good heart. I am a good love. I am all these different things, because they will take your identification of good and they'll try to make it appear as if, or feel as if, you are something different. A bad person. You're cheap. A terrible parent. If you did this, if you love me, you wouldn't do this. All those different things. It's getting your moral judgment, your I am. Realize that there are some tough decisions. They might be the most difficult decisions you make in your life. But then begin to continue on the path of decisiveness. More deliberate and decision making. I decide to bring flowers into the home today. I decide to put up something that makes my life comfortable. I will get a soft, comforting blanket. I will have, my dreams rule my life again. And to me, to dream and live free means to really dream, and to really live free means. What does it really mean? Know this. Take time apart from your regular day-to-day thought process. Dr. Joe Dispenza, we think, 80 to 90,000 thoughts, and 90 to 95% are the same. Think and decide a little bit more to dream again, and you will be okay. Let yourself out a little, but realize that you don't need to endure, cope, or put up. You need to basically stop with your senses and listening all your senses and bring them back within and take them off of this individual. Take them off. Tear your eyes away, your heart away, just for a moment, and then you can say, for their best, I'm going to. If you want to reframe it that way and, not believe the lies, not allow them to get away with this, allowing other people to see this. If other people laugh it off, oh, they're just a teenager, they're just a man's man, a woman's woman, a big guy, a bad, whatever. Those aren't the people who are seeing it. Okay? Realize that, and realize that you must be strong in and out within yourself to make a good moral judgment, a good moral call, and to say, for my own safety, for my happiness, for my joy, and to dream again. I'm going to take my shreds of sanity, and it's okay for me to self-protect and have joy and tap into a little bit more of those positive and reframe, and do it deliberately. Write them down and relearn it, because it's not going to benefit you to cave into the demands of someone who will manipulate, deceive, and hide this from others. Unfortunately, it is just what it is, and your life can carry on because you are all the glory, joy, and beauty that you are. Have a beautiful day.